Time for World Edition on December the 4th, 2025. There's only about 20 something days to go till Christmas and all along those lines, but a lot's going on in the world. And we'll be talking about that here on World News and hearing what people's reactions are to some of the things that are taking place, including Putin's visit to India. So we do know that that is one of the things that is taking place in the world and that folks are paying attention to. So, Trump's crackdown on Russian oil hangs heavy over Putin's visit to India, and Modi rolls out the red carpet for Putin, defying Western pressure. India has clinched a $2 billion Russian submarine deal as Putin visits. So that's something that they'll be talking about, and all along those lines. Trump will be hosting the DR Congo's Felix uh, Tshisekedi and Rwanda's Paul Kagame to sign a peace deal. So Trump to host Congo and Rwanda leaders for peace talks in a persistent conflict. So Trump hosts the leaders of Congo and Rwanda to sign a key deal for peace in eastern Congo. So we'll see if this goes on and how that plays out. And Putin must have authorized Novichok poisoning in Salisbury, UK inquiry finds. So Putin authorized the 2018 Novichok poisoning of the ex-Russian spy Skripal. So UK sanctions Russia after inquiry finds Putin responsible for nerve agent attack on British soil. So family of the Novichok poisoning victim still has questions as report finds Putin morally responsible. Kenya government allegedly acts as arm of migrant recruitment industry while rolling back protection for domestic workers, including co-non-response and co-comments. So Kenya kept a diplomat in his job despite years of sex abuse accusations. So Kenya must stand up for its women in Saudi Arabia, is what's being reported by the Daily Nation. African migrant women, alarming figures on abuse in Gulf and Middle Eastern countries. The UK and Norway have formed a naval alliance to hunt Russian submarines. So UK and Norway launched a pact to hunt Russian spy ships. NATO nations to hunt Russian submarines in historic defense deal. And UK and Norway will mount joint naval patrols to protect undersea cables and hunt folks that are doing them wrong. So we'll put it that way. And the body of Seti Sak Renthiak, a Thai farmer and family breadwinner, has been returned to Israel. Israel says Palestinian groups returned the bodies of the Thai hostage held in Gaza. Israel says the Gaza border will reopen, but only for Palestinians to leave. And that's something that's going on in the Middle East. So we got a lot going on in the Middle East as well. Emmanuel Macron warns of disintegration risks to world order in Xi Jinping meeting. So Macron urges Xi to help end the war in Ukraine, and Macron also urges Xi to help correct unsustainable global trade imbalance. Trump and top envoy to meet Ukrainian negotiator in Florida following the Putin meeting. So we'll see how this all goes out and if there's any possibility of an end to that conflict or all along those lines. So that is something that is also going on in the world as well. So that's going on in that sense. Australia says the world will follow social media ban as Meta starts blocking teens. Meta starts kicking Australian children off of Instagram and Facebook, and some people are wondering, is this the end of kids on social media? What's changing for under 16s and parents on YouTube in Australia? So that's one of the stories that's being reported as well. Trump is fighting the Institute of Peace in court. Now his name is on the building. The U.S. Institute of Peace renamed for Trump after his administration gutted it earlier this year. So the U.S. Institute of Peace is renamed after Trump. White House renames building the Donald J. Trump Institute of Peace. So definitely that's something going on as well. So he's got another name that is on another building that's got his name. In Foreign Affairs, the magazine, they're talking about a magical thinking about Ukraine, and without a formal policy process, Trump can't end the war in Ukraine, is what Politico Europe is saying. And Trump's Ukraine peace efforts test his unconventional diplomacy. Kate Middleton and Prince William just released their dreamiest photo yet. So banquet, royal family, and Starmer on their first day of German state visit. And the Telegraph reports, I finally saw the point of monarchy at the state banquet. And Kate Middleton makes a jaw-dropping interest in the biggest tiara she's ever worn at a state banquet. So apparently they were making some different fashion statements as well. Brexit, Britain is flirting with the EU again, but Brussels is pretty busy. Less than meets the eye to Starmer's word on Brexit is what Henry Zeffman was saying, and Starmer rules out rejoining EU customs union, but steps up reset efforts. My Pillow's Mike Lindell files paperwork for a potential Minnesota governor run against Tim Walz. So that ought to be an interesting race if the My Pillow guy runs against Tim Walz. Deadly Asian floods are no fluke. They're a climate warning, is what scientists are saying. Is she alive? Indonesia man's hope of finding missing wife fade after flood disaster. Southeast Asia and Sri Lanka are reeling from storms and flooding. Asia flood death toll surpasses 1,500 as calls grow to fight deforestation. A mass wedding in Gaza in pictures, so made the impossible possible. Ghazian couples tie the knot in a massive wedding after 2 years of loss. 54 couples married in a mass wedding on the ruins of Khan Yunis in a UAE-sponsored event. So, mass wedding in Gaza celebrates new life after years of war and tragedy. Hong Kong's response to deadly fire shows China's playbook in action. Hong Kong fire draws public fury and tests Beijing's grip on city. After a terrible fire in Hong Kong, fury is smoldering. Hong Kong is racing to remove scaffolding nets blamed for fueling the deadly fire. And a deep sea search for Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 to resume on December 30th. The search for the long missing Malaysian Airlines flight to resume, and inside the deep sea search for missing Malaysia Airlines planes. So definitely it looks like they're trying to find this plane that disappeared some 11 years ago. So it's resuming after 11 years after the jet went missing. EU is proposing using foreign Russian assets or borrowing to give Ukraine 90 billion euros. So Europe's plan to use $105 billion of frozen Russian assets to them out the war, says Russia's Medvedev. So stakes high, Europe's races to save its financing plan for Ukraine. And it looks like Politico EU is saying that Belgium has become Russia's most valuable asset. Deadly attacks in the Gaza test ceasefire on the eve of a new phase. And Israel-Gaza live updates, 5 killed in Israeli strikes in southern Gaza, hospital says. So IDF confirms Khan Yunis airstrikes targeting Hamas air operatives after the attack on troops. So 5 killed in Israeli airstrikes on tents near Khan Yunis is what the medics are saying in that particular case and along those lines. I see that I've got Sasha with me. I'm going to bring him up in a little bit, see what he's got to say about some of these world events and all along those lines. And of course, we got a number of other things going on in the world, and hopefully others will be joining us also. But it does look like I've said a lot's taking place in the world. And after 13 years of searching, a Syrian man has learned his brother's fate. Syrian doctors complicit in Assad's torture now working in Europe. So it looks like, according to the Irish Times, a serious disappeared leak of Assad torture photos reveals the fates of thousands. And Sri Lankans sift mud to unearth victims 4 days after a deadly cyclone. So ruined rice fields and broken rail lines. Sri Lanka counts the cost of the cyclone, and they're saying that the cyclone survivors in that country are afraid to go home, and they're stuck in relief centers, as Cyclone Titwa is the one that hit them on this particular time. So definitely that was some weather-related stuff. And UK brokers first direct Israel-Lebanon talks in decades. So Lebanon's prime minister says peace with Israel could bring economic ties, but both are far off. Lebanon and Israel hold their first direct talks in 40 years as war fears arise. And Lebanon far from diplomatic normalization with Israel, the prime minister says. So, like I said, there's a lot going on in the world, including a possible peace deal that is being brokered by Trump that involves 2 African nations and all along those lines. And by the way, the Trump administration, the FBI has made an arrest in the investigation into the pipe bombs placed in D.C. on the eve of January 6th. So the FBI has arrested a suspect in the January 6th pipe bomb case. And definitely, this is something that folks have been waiting for a while. And Ukraine and U.S. negotiators to meet in Florida after Moscow talks, White House says. So a U.S.-backed peace plan to end Russia's war in Ukraine has stalled. So definitely that's something that's going on as Putin vows to take Ukraine's eastern region as top U.S. and Ukrainians prepare to meet. And Trump lawmakers' pardoning list stretches far beyond Henry Cuellar. Trump says he's pardoning the Democratic congressman in a bribery case, and Henry Cuellar will seek re-election as a Democrat after the Trump pardon. So it looks like Trump is pardoning this Democratic representative charged with bribery and conspiracy. And a volunteer's dire warning about the National Guard DC shooting suspect. So the suspect in the National Guard attack struggled with dark isolation as community raised concerns. So the accused National Guard shooter is held without bond after pleading not guilty to murder and assault charges from his hospital bed and everything like that. And Trump's own voters are beginning to blame him for the affordability crisis. Almost half of Americans say the cost of living is worst it's ever been, new poll finds. And Americans say they worry about the economy. Receipts say otherwise. So devastating polls show even Trump voters are blaming him for the painful prices. So looks like he might be losing some support and all along those lines. And folks are asking what to know about Admiral Mitch Bradley, the commander at the center of the boat strike. U.S. military boat strike planning takes on new significance, and Tillis is questioning whether hedges went after the first boat strike. So definitely it looks like that's going on. And detainees at Alligator Alcatraz are facing harrowing human rights violations is what a new report is putting out there and all along those lines. But I've got Rick Rosner with me. I've also got Star with me, and I've also got in the background Nick Palveda. We'll see if he joins us or not, and all along those lines. So how are you been doing?
I'm fine, but what Nick has been saying for months, and what I've been agreeing with is that the U.S. economy is starting to get kicked in the balls. That more job losses in this past month, the most job losses in 2.5 years, the most job losses for the year since COVID. And so they haven't released. Last month they said we can't give you the government numbers on unemployment and inflation because of the shutdown. I'm sure they could, but they were not good numbers. But when the numbers do come out, they're going to be higher than a couple of months ago.
Yeah, it looks like there's a lot going on in that space. By the way, a University of Oklahoma instructor is on leave after failing a Bible-based essay asserting belief in multiple genders is demonic. So apparently that's the essay that he was having to take, and now he's on leave after failing
Which
the.
is crazy because he was completely courteous to the girl, the student, did an unacceptable job. The I got a lot of shitty grades in high school and college, and almost always it was because I'd done a shitty job. And this girl, I read her essay. It was barely an essay, and it didn't fulfill the assignment, and she deserved the grade she got. Uh, it was graded by two people, both the professor and the TA in the class, and they both agreed. And this is just part of a Turning Point USA culture warrior scam. She is a very pretty young woman, and she's a culture warrior in training, like the anti-trans woman who came in fifth place, tying with a trans. It's just to gin up. If she's so Bible-y, which she is, why is she taking a course in gender studies?
Yeah, that's a good question. Everything like that. Hey, Sasha, you grew up. I mean, you were born in Ukraine, if I remember correctly, and everything, but you definitely spent some time in Russia, and Russia has definitely been under martial law and other kinds of laws like that for a while. I was just wondering because every time I turn around, there's another couple of cities here in the U.S. that are being under immigration enforcement crackdowns. Right now, it's in New Orleans and Minnesota, the Twin Cities, and everything like that. So are we about to just have martial law in the U.S.? I mean, you've lived under that kind of environment, so are we heading that way?
It's getting there simply because that would allow Trump to extend his presidency for actually not even for 4 years, could be much longer, because if it's a martial law, then there are no elections, and then he can rule for another several years, 20 years, 35 years. He's still going to be alive, but supposedly he's working on finding some cure together with Putin and Emperor Xi to extend the lifespan up to 150 years. And once that would be achieved, there would be further study how to increase it to 250 years. So we may be under Trump indefinitely. I'm for sure, Mark, you probably for sure, and maybe our younger participants in this program, they will be still under Trump for a long, long time. Now, what's interesting is that after this so-called negotiations in Moscow, now the Americans invited Umerov, a chief negotiator from Ukraine, to Florida.
Mhm.
So, okay, I understand that both Kushner and
You're going to get a security.
are in Florida. Okay, so then what is there to discuss if the Moscow meetings failed? Yesterday, European Union and most European countries, not even members of NATO, but European Union and many others, they offered packages for helping Ukraine. Short term, $1 billion, long term, $150 billion plus. So if the whole world, not just NATO, not just Europe now, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, they're all on the side of Ukraine. They despise Putin, this aggressive maniac, and US is the only country in the world, beside usual North Korea, China, and Iran, among civilized countries, US is the only one that supports Russia openly. They're not arbiters between Russia and Ukraine. They are clearly on side of Russia. And the major trouble and what Europe and Ukrainians are afraid of, that they will openly start support Russia financially, with the weapons and any other way. So US will become a big five: Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, US. That's where it's all going right now.
Where does India fit into that? Because I saw that Putin is flying in his flying Kremlin to India. So I guess he's got a big deal going in terms of a submarine with India. So I see you said the big five, but does India fit into this at all? Are they going to be a superpower as well? Because it looks like they are trying to cozy up to the Kremlin in various ways. So what's your take on India's role?
Uh, India is in no way superpower and will not become one anytime soon. India is pursuing its objectives as a normal country. They're trying to buy resources as cheap as possible, even if it's from Russia. Why not? But now you see, US is undermining its own foreign policy and that of Western Europe by causing up to Putin and siding up with Putin. So India now thinks, okay, if US is on the side of Putin, so what's the problem to buy Russian the natural resources? Because US is on Russian side, China is on Russian side. What the India is there to do? So maybe the right strategy is in fact buying Russian resources as much as possible. Because India is playing the game which is should benefit India more than anybody else, and they're absolutely right.
Yeah, that makes sense and everything. Hey, Rick, how concerned are you about the state of the military readiness in the U.S.? Because I saw that an Air
The
Force pilot
military is, we have a great military. I'm concerned about Pete Hegseth in charge. Imagine if we had a military crisis and that dipshit was calling the shots.
well, apparently we already had like a minor crisis because apparently an Air Force pilot ejected at Thunderbird's F-16s crashed
Yeah,
in
that's
California
okay. That
yesterday.
happens. Planes crash. They malfunction. But I mean, imagine like what if frickin' China decided that since the U.S. is now run by dipshits, that they are gonna now is the time to take Taiwan. The crisis is Trump being commander in chief and Hegseth being secretary of war. Um, one's stupider than the other.
Yeah, it looks like an armed volunteer was charged in a fatal shooting at Utah's No Kings protest. So a safety volunteer has been charged with manslaughter in the shooting at a Salt Lake City No Kings protest and all along those lines. So I'm sure the right will play into that and talk about how these protests are not being protected enough and all along those lines. But I know that because I've worked on a couple of protests that there's usually efforts to try to make sure that people are not causing trouble, whether it's Antifa or other organizations as well. But I'm sure that the right will find a way to paint that in a different way. You mentioned Pete Hegseth. I understand he's in trouble because of the
Maybe.
Venezuelan.
I mean, it all depends on what Trump decides to do about it.
Right.
And Trump doesn't like being told what to do by anybody.
No, he doesn't like to be told what to do. And looks like Letitia James is in the news again. She's challenging the grand jury subpoenas into Trump and the NRA. So she's challenging the authority of the acting U.S. attorney investigating her Trump lawsuits and everything. And speaking of New York, I was reading an article earlier today where apparently outgoing Mayor Adams did some executive orders that they are saying could be a slap in the face toward Mamdani and everything like that, because these are executive orders that will cement New York's relationship with Israel and the Jewish communities. And they were saying that was probably done as a direct slap in the face to Mamdani as he's going to come into office. So what is our take on this?
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, Eric Adams is a dickhead too. But I did read something interesting. Sasha has been saying for as long as the war has been going on that when you have an enemy fighting force embedded among citizens, the number of, I mean, it's horrible. 70,000 Palestinians have been killed now, but the ratio of citizens killed to army fuckers killed is high. And I read an article that went into the civilian casualties compared to fighter casualties for a number of conflicts. And Sasha is right that when the fighters use the citizens basically as human shields, the ratio of citizens killed to fighters killed is freaking horrible. And so, okay, yeah, the Netanyahu's kind of a dick, but the death rates are.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's going on there in Israel and everything like that. Hey, Jacoby, you've joined us, and I know that sometimes there's all this talk. I think that Trump is trying to maybe garner some support with the Black and brown community because now he's trying to broker a peace deal between Congo and Rwanda and everything, and he's invited the leaders of those two countries to come down. But then on the flip side of that, the University of Alabama has suspended a Black and female student magazines citing DEI guidance. So the university is looking to create a new magazine following the suspension of Alice and 1956, right, and everything like that. So the university shut down two campus magazines because they might look like DEI, and maybe this is going to go on in other universities as well, as they've now shuttered two magazines. So what's your take on those two stories?
They mean nothing, absolutely nothing. You got HBCUs losing funding. You got, DEI, which became a term for Black people in the first place. Him claiming that Black people are unqualified and all this other stuff means nothing. For the Black conservative, it doesn't really even mean that much right now because Candace Owens is their big black conservative, and she's not really doing too well there either because she got attacked by the Charlie Kirk people, also got attacked by the Nick Fuentes people. On top of that, the only black conservative that's trying to push Trump is Stephen A. Smith right now. And Stephen A. Smith, as much as he wants to talk about, well, Democrat this and Democrat that, dude, you're pushing nothing but Trump talking points every time you talk. You had Ted Cruz on for your show, and then he has a whole bunch of Republicans coming on, stuff like that. So, yeah, Stephen A. Smith is the black conservative right now that's also trying to push Trump. But again, none of it means nothing, truthfully, because Trump is deporting nothing but black and brown people. He's attacking nothing but black and brown people. He's making a pathway for white people and the white South Afrikaners to come in because that's where he believes is the real problem out there is that white Afrikaners are written. It's just crazy. But what I wanted to ask, because this is where I wanted to ask Sasha, and I'm glad Sasha's here, because 4 out of the past 6 months, we've lost jobs. We also have, inflation that's continually ticking up. It's just, there's so many problems in the economic market. What is going to happen when the stock market bursts, when that bubble bursts? Because it seems like AI is now, the funding around AI is starting to peter out, and crypto is also that bubble's about to burst. So, Sasha,
Okay, here's what I said. Yesterday was very interesting episode at the opening of the market around 9:30. So Microsoft came with with a statement that they don't believe that the trillions of dollars of AI spent on this centers, the data centers, and all that other stuff, there is no way, considering the interests of payments needed to be paid in order to funds come to support this creation of data centers around, it will be ever recovered, or if recovered, it will take maybe centuries until that the expenditures will be. What's happened is that the market dive, if you look at the graphs of yesterday's stock market trading, market dived imminently. And here comes Trump's kicking and screaming and basically shouting at everybody, what's going to happen to my stock market? Get it up immediately, and so on. And the market started to recover. Okay, so with his shouting and screaming, Trump maybe can support stock market for another month, 2, or whatever, but he cannot do it forever, because so he screams second time, people will not pay attention to it, and the third time they will tell him to shut up. So this is how the stock market really being manipulated today. It's becoming the place for rich and famous. It's disconnected from the Main Street. So there is one economy for Main Street and another economy for a stock market. And guess this disconnect will deepen and continue on for a foreseeable future, at least until Trump is in the office.
And we don't know what time he might get out of office. Like you said, there might be martial law later on. Just really quickly, because in that same reign of talking about Trump and everything, apparently he halted the immigration application for migrants from 19 countries that have got this travel ban going on and everything like that. So Trump is vowing to remove U.S. citizens, and even Bloomberg is asking, can he do that? So what is our thoughts around this? Are we about to see a mass deportation of people, even some that have been U.S. citizens?
No, it's unconstitutional. He can try, he can put them on planes, and then a court will say, bring them back. But the deal, Trump is the dumbest president in U.S. history, and you can't expect. And he surrounded himself with a bunch of yes men and idiots, and you can't expect things to go well for any significant length of time when the country is run by frickin' idiots.
Speaking of being run by
Well,
idiots, how concerned are
just to
you
point
about?
out, real quick though, Mark, just to point out, what Rick is saying is true. However, that hasn't stopped him before. So this mass deportation, those countries that you pointed out, are they black and brown countries? Yes. So those black and brown countries, he's gonna, just as he's already said that the Somali people are garbage, and he's gonna try and get rid of all Somalis in the U.S., even if they were born here. So right now he's gonna try. ICE has 70% of the individuals that have been arrested by ICE and detained have no criminal background, nothing. But yet he still detains them. He's actually, I can't remember the percentage off the top of my head, but even U.S. citizens he's abducted. It's against the law for him to do that, but he's still done it. So what's going to happen next with this whole mass deportation? Anybody with melanin in their skin is going to be a target. And then on even worse, the reason that is because it's playing on the histrionics of this country. The sad histrionics of this country, because if you everybody knows the poem, they came for the socialists and all the way down, and then they came for me and nobody was there to speak for me. That is exactly what's happening right now. He's going for the easy targets. That people are, he's trying to get out, and he's training his followers to say it's okay. Nick comes on here every single day saying the trained things that he tried to justify yesterday, bombing and regime change, because that's what he's doing to train his individuals to say these things are just fine. It's okay. He's doing what's right. No, he's not. He's breaking the law.
Yeah, Nick's in the background. Maybe he'll join us and everything like that. But the DOJ has sued 6 more states, and we're talking about that recently.
Your voice is, you got to reload your voice.
Yeah, you got to get something with that voice. But the
the
DOJ
BS filter.
information on all Washington voters, and they're also hitting Rhode Island with a lawsuit over the voter list data, and even suing the Vermont Secretary of State for failing to turn over their voter data. I know I don't want my data turned over, and that's not that much data that's in a voter roll and everything like that. But it seems like it's a take on our privacy and everything like that. So I know you're in Spain, but what is your concerns, if any, as a lawyer about this notion of this sweeping push to obtain unredacted voter rolls?
Unredacted voter rolls?
Yes.
Who's doing that?
Nick is going to give us the talking point.
No,
Nick is going to give us the talking point.
That's even an interesting topic to discuss. But what is interesting as a topic is that the immigration.
Taking data, voter data to mess with the actual elections isn't a fun topic. Okay.
No, it's just not even interesting. But the immigration issue is very interesting because Jacoby keeps saying it's racist. Okay. Not realizing this. Now, point this out, Jacoby. The vast majority of undocumented workers are Hispanic, 63%. Then the next of them are El Salvador, 9.6, Guatemala, 8.8, Honduras, 6.2. So the real problem is, and the reason they're being deported is these are the ones.
Hold on. Nick, let's start over. No. Nick, stop. Nick, stop. Wait. Even Mark had to give the wrinkle of the brow. Nick, stop. Nick, you are bolstering my point. You are legitimately bolstering my point.
It's like saying, hey, we committed a crime.
What did I say? Nick,
when did they get
Nick,
attacked?
Nick, Nick,
Let
Nick, 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 Nick.
Let him say something. We let him
Rick,
say
hold
something.
on. Rick, you two, y'all both stop. Listen to what I'm saying. Nick came on and said, hey, let me prove him wrong that he's not racist or that this thing is not racist. And he then legitimately bolstered my point by pointing out Hispanic communities. Black and brown people. That was his straight up point from the start. And me trying to stop him to tell him that he's saying exactly what I'm saying is not me actually interrupting him. It's me pointing out a fact. So, Rick, you should be on my side instead of sitting here trying to say that. I'm trying to actually have a conversation.
I didn't
It's
hear
not
the
racist at all. It has
Nick
nothing
was
to do with
giving-
race. It has to
What
do with
is your
legality.
point, Nick? What is your point?
You're making it a race thing. Look, I'm Hispanic. Okay. So the thing is, but I move through countries legally, and a lot of Hispanics do move through countries
just to be clear,
legally.
then we can yell
But
at
if you do it illegally, you're going to end up being booted out. And I realize that. But they think, for whatever reason, they have the complete right to just walk through the borders of the United States, and they don't.
Point is, but
Okay,
it's
and that's the
race-
point.
wait,
It has-
so
you know,
just to be clear,
Again,
black,
just
brown,
to be
Hold
clear,
on.
Hold
One
on.
at a time.
Just to be
Jewish,
clear,
One at a
your
time.
point
Rick,
You know?
is because you're saying that Trump can't help it to be racist because the people who've come
has
here
nothing to do with race. It
illegally,
has to do with law.
aren't white.
No, it has nothing to do with race. It has to do with law. If they were coming from Finland or even the UK,
Incorrect.
overstaying their visas, they get deported. Okay, it's just the way it is.
Incorrect.
I get deported
Nick,
if I came through here.
Nick, we just got your
And
point.
for
Let me
some
actually show you
For
why.
some
Again,
reason,
you have bolstered my
Jacoby,
point.
you want to give them
Nick,
a
again,
pass.
let
I
me
will
show
give
you.
them no
You made your
pass.
point. You
I
made your
give them
point.
no
You've
pass. I
made
grant
your
them
point.
no
You've
pass.
made your point.
Okay,
Now
thank
let
you.
me show you why your point actually just bolsters mine. Again, you keep talking about this illegal and blah 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 blah.
Yeah, it's just
Again,
legal. That's all.
you're saying, hold on, Nick, hold on. And you're saying that nobody from Finland comes over here illegally. Again, that's
not.
incorrect. Then number two, you're talking
They do,
about
they get
people
deported.
being, hey, Nick, you're trying to interrupt me now because you know
Yeah,
your
because
point
you
is
interrupt me
wrong.
all the time.
So
But if
again,
they
hold
do,
on,
they
Nick.
get
Oh, that's
deported,
fine.
Jacoby.
I am a professional talker. I will continue to talk
I get
over top
paid
of
to
you.
talk,
You are not
Jacoby.
good at this. I am. I
am
get
not good
hired
on
to do this.
great.
So I will keep on talking over
Yeah,
top
you
of
just
you
overtalk.
because you do not understand the situation, what you
Right.
are walking into. So again, just to point out the position, again, illegal and legal. If you want to talk about undocumented workers and undocumented individuals, sure. Okay, but you're not understanding the fact that he's actually deporting people who actually have papers, who are actually going through the process legally, who are actually doing these things legally. So he's mass deporting people that are actually doing exactly what you're actually saying. And then on top of that, to prove that this is a racist situation and he's deporting nothing but black and brown people, the fact of the matter that he cut down the actual asylum seekers from 70,000 all the way down to 7 or 15 or whatever it is now, and prioritizing white South Afrikaners. He legitimately said white South Afrikaners. That is being racist from the start.
I talked to AI, and Nick is wrong. I asked AI, are white people who overstay visas kicked out at the same rate as black and brown people? And AI came back, Google AI said, no, white people who overstay are not kicked out or deported at the same rate as black people who face disproportionately higher rates. So yeah, Nick is wrong. And yeah, the thing you just mentioned, that we had a refugee policy. If there is war going on in your country, we made room for like 120,000 people from around the world to run away from war. Trump cut it down to 7,500. He cut it down by 94%, with the majority of those 7,500 people, most of those slots going to white farmers from South Africa who Trump claims are being slaughtered, which is not true, because if you look at the actual statistics of South Africa, only one murder victim in 500 in South Africa is a farmer, regardless of race.
And then here's the cherry on top. The fact that the head of DHS went to court to ask if they could racially profile.
Well,
I
speaking
would
of
like to
racial,
ask one question about legal and illegal immigrants. What's the difference between legal and illegal? Let's see if you take two families.
File your
One
papers.
legally and is working, raising family, and so on, and another one came illegally, also working, raising family, and so on. So the difference comes to one family paid $10,000 to a lawyer who created this
There you
paper, and they got it. Another one either rejected paying $10,000 or simply didn't have $10,000 to pay. So they're illegal. So that's a difference. By the way, in Canada, there are people, illegals. They're mostly those who overstayed their visa, and instead of going back on time to their country, they're staying in Canada. Maybe they have relatives, maybe they found a job or whatever. So they have ample time, it's I think up to 7 years, that they can apply for a status. Yes, they would have to pay, in this case, money to their lawyer who will shuffle all the papers and prepare everything. But eventually they will become legalized immigrants. And that's
But under Trump, that's not happening. Trump is deporting everybody, even if they have done everything correctly. He's pulling people out of they show up for a meeting with the government to finalize their immigration, and they're pulled out anyway. And now Trump is saying he's going to deport Somalis who are fully U.S. citizens. Under Trump, everybody is freaking illegal. It's a crapshoot between whether you did nothing legally in coming here and whether you did everything legally. He will still put you on a freaking plane. He'll throw you.
I don't think he can do that. And also, your statement.
He's doing it,
okay.
And then you have to go to court,
Right.
and then a judge says you can't do it. He is deporting people for whom judges have said these people not.
To your point, both of your points, how many people are being deported that are because a lot of the deportations that I'm seeing are targeting like the lower and the middle class. A lot of them are going after like stores and restaurants and things along those lines, even when ISIS come here and everything like that. But I'm wondering, how much is he targeting, say, like the people that are, because there are a lot of people that are overstaying their visas and everything like that. How much is he targeting the universities and the research centers where a lot of these people, we don't know if they are actually still in the time frame of when they're supposed to be here, if they're here on visas and everything like that. So I know there's like the HB.
Yeah, so they show up at car washes where they know a lot of Mexicans are working.
Right.
They don't show up like you live in the middle of the research triangle, which has a ton of scientific institutes. I don't see ICE showing up at scientific institutes checking whether some Swedish guy working in a lab overstayed his visa, which he might very well have done.
Exactly, and that's my point.
So what's your point? In other words, they're going into the areas where there's predominantly more people that
they've also set up tip lines where
I don't know why you're defending an indefensible position, counselor. You know, you're saying is that these people broke the law. Oh, by the way, your racist thing.
No,
I did the research on the AI. They provided no statistics or documentary evidence whatsoever. So you should need to go look at it again, because sometimes AI is just pulling off the internet talking points, Rick, with no statistical background.
You make a good point.
However,
that's what
I'll concede that the probability is correct, that because at the lower levels they will actually do racial profiling. So I'll concede that it's probably correct, but your AI is probably incorrect. All right.
Well, speaking of
with that, here's the thing. If you actually have your documents in line, you should have no problem.
That's
that's not true. We have 15 million or 30 million, an uncountable amount of people here that are here illegally.
No,
Now,
30
either
million
you
is a
need to
whole
go
different. Now
change the
you
law.
have to give me. You just said 30 million. You didn't
I
cite
don't know
a
how.
source. That 30 million comes from conservative lunatics. It's somewhere between 10 and 20 million.
Okay, let's say it's between 10 and 20 million. I'm good with 10 or 20 million. You're talking about a lot of people. Remember that your friend Joe Biden, your friend Obama had the control in Congress and the presidency to change the law and invoke a statute of limitations, which they never did. So obviously you had
Wait,
Democratic
wait a minute, Nick. It wasn't Obama
they had
considered
the chance to pass the law back then. They didn't do it.
deportation king even before Trump? Because
No, deportation was going on, but it's not a deportation is just the end game. The real game is, did you come here illegally? And if you did, is there statute of limitations? And there is no statute. With most crimes there are. All the Democrats had to do, and they refused to do it, was to invoke a 5-year statute of limitations on people that came here illegally and make them legal. And then we wouldn't be having this discussion. But your friend Obama and your friend Joe Biden, neither one, when they controlled the House and Congress, even introduced a bill to do that. So they're not interested in controlling illegal immigration either. So, you know, what you guys are doing is just nonsense. And so now you have this law. It's the law of the United States. And you guys say, hey, I don't like it. Well, too bad, you know, and they don't like it. Well, too bad. So go on, Rick.
So I looked it up, and the rate of students, people in academia who overstay, is estimated to be about 2.5%. So 1 in 40.
Yeah, right.
So I mean,
so
it's not as many as like if you showed up at a research triangle and just walked the halls of a lab, and you know, if ICE wanted to be assholes to you know, inside a lab building and talk and like buttonhole everybody who's got a foreign accent in the research triangle, they would catch some people. Maybe not as many people as at a car wash, but you don't see ICE hitting any place where you're likely to find.
Just between us people, Rick, would you feel uncomfortable if you just went over to Great Britain, where your daughter lives, and decide, hey, I'm just going to stay here?
We talk about it. Yeah,
I know, but the thing is,
we would, because the deal is, if you piss off British immigration. Now the deal is so here's what British immigration is. You can come there for 6 months, then you have to go home for 6 months. If you do that repeatedly, they can say, we don't like your behavior. We think you are trying to live here, and you just can't come here anymore.
Yeah, I know. I'm like even over here, we had to be very careful. There's a 90 days, which we could stay here, and we weren't getting our visa. We weren't sure if we're going to get it. So we had already made plans to leave Spain and go to Gibraltar, or go to the United Kingdom, or go somewhere else. Because if we overstayed our visa, we knew we would have broke the law. And over in Spain, they have a 5 years. If you break the law, you don't get to come back in again.
Nick,
but the real problem isn't that. The real problem is the people in Mexico and Honduras have no respect for the U.S. laws, and so they just walk through the border, or they get somebody sneaking through the border.
One of the places
and now they're getting it back at them. And where my and the Democrats don't care, or they would have changed the law, and they didn't do it. And the Republicans apparently do care. And not only they care, I hate to tell Jacoby, they actually got voted in office. This was the number 2 issue. No, so the thing is, the vast majority of Americans,
hold on, I got 2 questions. Hold on, I got 2 questions for you in that regards, because one of the places that I sometimes go eat at is the management is made of people from Honduras. It's actually one of our sandwich shops around here and everything like that. But I know that one of the young fellows has said that he is concerned about going back home, because he's afraid that if he goes back home that he won't be able to come back to the store, even though he is a legal immigrant. He goes to school here. I mean, he's a student and everything like that. So I've had conversations with him, and he's concerned that if he goes to visit his family, that he might not be able to come back because of some of the rules and regulations.
You know, I have the same problem, Mark. First of all, being an American, and you guys aren't that popular here in Europe, is a bit of a problem. Okay. So, but that's just, you know, part of life. And then when I go back to the United States, sometimes I think, hey, I can't get back into Spain.
Well, let's talk about respect for the law, because ICE itself isn't respecting the law. Again, I talked to AI. This time AI came back with a statistic that says It's difficult to provide a precise percentage. However, estimates suggest that a significant portion of the undocumented population, perhaps around 40%. I asked what percent of deportees have protected legal status. AI says maybe 40%, form of protection like parole, asylum, or temporary protected status. So a big chunk of the people who are getting picked up by ICE and flown out of the country are people who tried to do everything right and have gone to court and gone to meetings with immigration and are protected from that. ICE doesn't give a shit. They will still.
Right.
No, but hold on a second.
Hold on,
Speaking of ICE,
one more thing.
Yeah.
2/3 of the people picked up by ICE. Trump said he was going to pick up all the bad hombres, all the criminals, all the violent rapists and murderers. 2/3 of the people picked up and deported by ICE have no criminal record whatsoever. Being in the country.
The U.S. is not friendly to immigration. I got that.
But along those same lines, hey, Nick, my question for you is: how much of this has to do with also not just a race issue, which I do agree with that that's playing a part in it, but also a class issue? Because I'm thinking that how often has ICE, like, let's use the Research Tracker Park as an example, kind of like what Rick was just saying earlier and everything. I'm wondering how often has ICE gone and hit the hospitals or the universities where we know that there are a lot of people that are of foreign background working there. And I'm not saying to go there and target them because I think that they're doing a great job, but there are a number of people that are from Eastern European countries, they're from Latin American countries, they're from a number of other places that are working at these hospitals and working in these universities. I have not seen really them targeting that. This is usually going after the working class.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's probably true, but that's probably more the people that need the reason they come here. In other words, they come here to work. They don't come here on golden visas, but you're right. There is a class issue. There's a class issue in immigrating here to Europe as well. In most countries, you actually can buy your way into a lot of countries with a large amount of money. Over here in Spain, you have they used to have it, a $500,000 golden visa. That if you put $500,000 into a business, you get a visa. So, you know, it is what it is out there. And part of it is the U.S. wants the best and the brightest, not something that everybody can get, which is common labor. Yeah.
An argument made in it keeps popping up, and I've seen it a bunch in the last couple of days, is that housing prices are too high. And if you got rid of all the illegals, then they wouldn't be taking our apartments and houses. And the deal doesn't work like that. That's not the problem. If you got rid of all the undocumented people, you wouldn't have houses because 30% of construction workers are undocumented immigrants.
Well, not only that, but if you got rid of what you're just saying, like when I first moved to this particular apartment complex that I live in now, my brother jokingly called it the barrio because there's a lot of people here that are of Hispanic background. As a matter of fact, a lot of the administration, like the people that run the apartments, are of a Hispanic background as well and everything like that. But and these are decently priced apartments, they're like probably in the $1,000 range or something like that. If you got rid of everybody here that was of Latin American and other backgrounds and everything, we would probably be it's like 950 units or something like that. We'd probably be about more than half unfilled, and I don't know necessarily that they would get refilled by other people of other cultures and everything like that. So that's another issue that even the people that own the properties have to think about as well. But I just had another question about Minnesota and everything along those lines, because is there any concern, or do we think that Mike Lindell, the MyPillow guy, is actually going to be a threat to Tim Walz? Because apparently he's thinking about running, and he's a friend of Trump, running for the governorship.
No, Mike Lindell is clinically insane. Mike Lindell has actual mental problems. He's a former drug addict, I guess former. I don't know that he can currently, but his brain is fried. And no, if Mike Lindell runs, well, he won't win the Republican primary. If he keeps running, he'll have to run as an independent. He'll get maybe 8% of the vote from lunatics. And that will actually give Tim Walz, if Walz runs again, a stronger victory because the 8% won't come from Walz voters who are reasonable people. It'll come from, the far right fringe.
Before we get out of here and everything, I have one other question because I had the pleasure yesterday, Nick, of interviewing the writer and the founder. She's actually a forensic pathologist and everything like that, but she was the person that Bones is based on. So I had the pleasure of interviewing her here on our network for the online dinner party and everything like that. But she is the writer that created the whole Temperance Brennan series, which is what Bones is based on, and everything like that. But she was been in some famous cases, and she goes back and forth, or before she retired, between Quebec and North Carolina. She lives in Charlotte and everything like that. But she was talking about that, and now there's a major case that involves Bones and everything, because there's even the NBC News talking about how to saw a body, can a body decompose in a plastic bag because of the Brian Walsh case. So a lot of people are watching this, including watching it on live stream, this murder case and everything. And apparently the man who had an affair with Anna Walsh is testifying in the trial. So are we getting to the point where a lot of people are so wrapped up? Because I remember even the Peterson case way back when, that there was a number of conversations where people were literally watching it on TV. I had an ex that was her whole fun soap opera, was watching these particular kind of cases. So we get to the point where people are just so enthralled in the grotesque, even some of these things.
People, I mean, that's nothing new. That's just people.
Yeah, but I mean, the problem right now, we're getting inundated with that type of stuff. So I don't know. I do know right now. Well, Jacoby's back there. No, he left, but we'll have to discuss it tomorrow. That he's backing the Somalia, even though Trump is not backing Somalia. But I don't know if he's familiar with it. Somalia kills gay people for being gay. I mean, Ricky can fact check.
Okay, I can fact check it, but are Somalians? So wait, I don't believe that Somalians in the U.S. are killing people for being.
No, I understand that, but he's attacking. But obviously, we know that Trump and Somalia, the country of Somalia, are going head to head. But please fact check whether or not the death penalty exists if you're gay in Somalia. Because I do like to fact check these things, because sometimes when I look at it, they'll say one thing. There was one thing on congressional pensions that I fact checked. It was completely wrong.
Right. So the Somalia has a legal system based on Sharia law, which includes the death penalty for sex. But the reports of its official enforcement by the government are limited. However, in territories controlled by the Al-Shabaab terrorist group, okay, so parts of Somalia are controlled by terrorists, and they will kill you for doing gay stuff.
Right. Okay. I just think that when we get Jacoby back tomorrow, we need to present him these facts. And then see if he still supports Somalia.
What does that have to do with Somalians in the U.S.? Somalis in the U.S. got the hell out because their country sucks ass.
Obviously, there may be a little embellishment on that particular area, but the thing is, we do have to fully bring out the story. You can't tell half of a Democratic liberal lie and ignore the other half. So we got to bring out the full story and then see if he still maintains the same.
Okay, under official law, Somali law permits the death penalty for people who do gay stuff. There are no known cases of this being imposed by the
federal government. It says it can be punishable by death, particularly in areas.
But they don't do it. The only place where people are being killed are the parts of Somalia that are run by terrorists.
And what percentage of that is run by terrorists? I've never been to Somalia. All I see is the warning flags. It's not on my list. So
I don't know. Let's look it up.
Is it half the country? Remember Sudan went into. The way I see it, the rankings are like the bottom two between them and Sudan.
Terrorist group Al-Shabaab controls roughly 30% of Somalia's territory.
Right. Okay. So anyway, that's part of the issue.
Hold on. But the government itself, the official government, controls less than that. So it's a failed state. So,
and there are like 64 countries, including some that are Arab, some that are African, some that are even in the European theater as well, that have severe crimes against people that are a part of the gay community and everything. Because definitely there are, you can go to Algeria, Burundi, Cameroon, Morocco, which I know some of our people on this network love and everything, Nigeria, even the occupied Palestinian territory, Senegal, Sierra Leone. But we can also go to some of the Caribbean countries that some of our folks like to go to: Dominica, Grenada, Jamaica, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines, as well as Cook Island and Papua New Guinea, Samoa, Solomon Islands, Tonga, Tuvalu, and that's just some of them, including Russia, that have some severe laws, and India and Indonesia that have some severe laws against what is considered the LGBT rights and everything along those lines. And that's according to Fair Planet, which I think is an LGBT support magazine and everything like that. So definitely there's a number of countries, I think it's like 64, that have criminalized the notion of homosexuality and everything like that.
Yeah. With Trump's policies toward LGBTQ, you can also list US as a country where the rights of minorities are severely affected, and as long as Trump will be in power, which I think will take another few months, because he will be definitely deemed incapacitated, and senators will beg J.D. Vance to remove him under Article 25.
They need to remove the Premier of Canada also while they're at it.
His country,
come on.
Is joining now.
The Canadians have no business.
China, Iran, and other countries. Yeah. It will be coalition which will be against all free world. All free world is helping Ukraine, not just NATO countries, not even just European Union countries. It's also Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, and US is the only major country in the world that supports Putin. That's
really, you mean China doesn't support him anymore? Putin?
Well,
did Xi and Putin have a falling out? I didn't hear about it.
Civilized European countries, China is not either one of them. So in that respect, he's joining China, Iran, North Korea, and Russia. And Europeans yesterday, they voiced an opinion that there is a great danger of United States joining Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea, fighting Ukraine and the free world. That's where we are going with your damn stupid president, criminal, and con man.
Well, speaking of con and everything like that, hey, Nick, is Europe going to join Brexit?
What?
Is England going to join Brexit? Because I hear that England is thinking
about
joining.
In other words, they come back to the European Union. Yeah, I've heard about that. I'm not really sure yet.
It's
a long process. They shouldn't have never left, but it could have actually been racial, Mark, because they had a lot of people coming in from, the Arab countries, and they didn't want
certainly racial. Russia, if it weren't for Russia helping pump the lies about what Brexit would do, Brexit was Brexit is like MAGA in the U.S. It's Brexit. They got all the dumb people in England to vote to leave the EU, and a lot of that was racism, and it was all pumped up by Russian propaganda.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that was probably a lot having to do with Brexit, because the European Union is more egalitarian than Great Britain is. In other words, it's a flatter structure here, so it's a little bit different. It's more like Canada than it is like the United States. So the EU is different. The U.S. is like an extreme country.
I watched an interesting documentary yesterday.
There is an interesting thing that I mean, Twitter is mostly terrible now, but one thing they did was they made it possible to click on a button and see where the account you're reading originates from. So you think you think you're reading something from the Tennessee Republican Party, you can click on that account and find out that it originates from Russia.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The internet's a wild, wild west. And hey, speaking of which, I'll be in your neck of the woods in February, Rick. I'll be in LA. There's a nonstop.
We should go out to dinner.
What?
We need to go out to dinner or lunch.
Yeah, my wife and I are both going to be coming in February, so we're heading to LA, baby, because there's a nonstop from here to LA.
We'll meet up. We'll take you out.
Yeah, and the thing is, I have different countries I'm going to. I'll be in Turkey in January, then I'll be in LA in February, then in March I'm going to be in Venice, and then in March, April I'll be in Budapest and Vienna, and then May I'm going to be back in the U.S., and then June I'll be in.
That sounds fantastic. I keep trying to get my wife to say yes to Venice again.
Oh my Lord, yeah. Well, there was a movie and Jane Fonda was in it. She goes, "You can never make it's never a bad idea to go to Venice. Never a bad idea."
Yeah, and you're going in March, which is great because the tourists don't show up until
Right. There's a lot of touristas, and touristas are unbelievable. You know, and I hate to say that.
I was watching an interesting documentary, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. Maybe this will be part of our conversation tomorrow as well. But it was a documentary about the first Trump election, not the second Trump election, but it was a group of folks that were supporting Trump, and people were shocked that they were supporting Trump because it was at the first election when they did January 6th. Well, January 6th was actually Biden's election and everything like that. But there was a group there that was gays for Trump, and one of the gays for Trump was a Hispanic brother and everything like that. So there were a number of people that were wondering whether, and even now are wondering if he would still be as backing of Trump as he was then and everything, because it was a gay individual. He stood up to his folks that were hating on him for standing up and supporting Trump at that particular rally, but he was definitely among friends, but also
Trump
among enemies.
Trump lies to everybody. Trump said he would be the best president in history for gay people. And he probably is for some gay people. If you're a 52-year-old hedge fund manager who makes $3.5 million a year, then
he's good. I got it right. So it is what it is. Welcome to the good old USA. But guess what? In 3 years from now, all the excitement's going to go away because you're not going to.
Not according to Sasha. Sasha told me earlier that we might have martial law and that he might still be.
Oh, that might be true. That would be great. Then you actually have a king for a change. That would be great. King Donald.
All right, I'm going to go take it.
Yeah, we're going to get out here. We got other shows coming on the network, including Coco.
We'll meet King Donald.
What did you say about tomorrow? I didn't hear what he said about tomorrow, but we're getting ready to get out of here. Sasha, I know we've got definitely the Ukraine-Russia show tomorrow as well. But right now, let's get on out of here.